Hi, good morning and welcome to Breakfast with Phil. Today we are at New Moon Cafe and this is the beach of Jimbaran, and as you can see it's not very crowded because most people come here for dinner, seafood dinner. But as you can see I've got an omelette, tomatoes, onions, bit of cucumber. So after the breakfast we will begin our discussion on Believe It or Not. Alright, so here we are at Jimbaran Beach, and today I'm going to do something similar to Ripley's Believe It or Not. Now Ripley's Believe It or Not was in magazines, and I had a book called Ripley's Believe It or Not. They even have museums, and it's astounding facts that, well, you believe them or you don't. So my first Believe It or Not today is about the discovery of Thailand as a major tourist destination. And actually this goes for Southeast Asia as well. And believe it or not, believe it or not, it's all due to the Vietnam War. Now during the Vietnam War, the GIs would get R&R. R&R stands for Rest and Recuperation. And they had many choices. Hong Kong, Australia, a lot of married men, well, of course they went to Hawaii. But the single men, well, of course, where did they go? They went to Thailand. And when they got back from America, they spread the word. So in the 70s, all the way through up to the early 80s, word was generally through word of mouth. Of course, magazines and books started to be written, but it's the Vietnam War that helped Thailand on its way to becoming possibly the #1 tourist destination in the world. Okay, next we have European countries, of course, are very similar to America in the sense that they changed their policy about 30 years ago to say that if you were born in a country, it makes you of that country. America still has that, of course. Countries like Indonesia, Singapore. In fact, my son was born in Singapore. I had to write a note saying that I do not expect my son to take Singaporean citizenship. The Brits, etc. are different. We allow anybody to become a British citizen if they're born in that country. However, if that's the case, I will bring you Rudyard Kipling, George Orwell, because guess what? They're not British, they're Indian. Well, we live and learn. Next is something called Dali toothpaste. Now if you've travelled to Hong Kong or you've been in Malaysia, you may have come across Dali toothpaste, but it used to be called Darky toothpaste in the 80s, and because it was called Darky and it had a picture that some felt was insensitive, they changed the name. And guess what? How do I know? This is Darky toothpaste. And this is also Darky toothpaste. It even has the price on. Can you believe it is 625 rupees? That's how cheap toothpaste was 30 years ago. Okay. Now, a study made over 20 years ago showed that personality and IQ generally crosses to the opposite sex. So, for example, a boy will take his mother personality and IQ, and of course a daughter will take the father. Of course, if the mother and father are very similar, you won't recognize this so much. But on the whole, the personality and the intelligence of somebody comes from the opposite sex. And just to prove it, I'll give you Exhibit A, and my Exhibit A, of course, is Prince Harry. Okay, what the hell? Yep, the word hell does not appear in the Bible. The concept of hell does, but the word hell has never been put in the Bible or any other religious book. But if you're hell-bent on disagreeing, write in the comments below. Now, passive smoking like global warming, global cooling, climate change is of course used to scare people. There's no real science behind it. In fact, what they did 20, 30 years ago was pretty much destroyed the people who disagreed with what we now call climate change. They discredited them, just similar to how they discredit people through woke today. But believe you me, a survey 10 years ago on the air stewardesses, actually they were called air hostesses, of the 1960s and 1970s was made. Now remember, in those days, and I remember, you could smoke on an aeroplane. Can you imagine smoking on an aeroplane? So these ladies, they were 8 hours in a cabin, confined, breathing in passive smoking. Well, guess what? The survey that they made showed not one woman, not one stewardess with lung cancer, or in fact any form of cancer. Our genes are so strong. We are so strong. We can survive falls. We can survive so many things. But genetics, we can't fight genetics. Passive smoking, load of crap. Okay, next. According to an internal memo leaked by the Bali tourism group last week, the least liked tourists in Bali are Russian, due to their arrogance and lack of interest for the Balinese culture. The second group are Indians, who are very famous for being quite tight with the money, even the billionaires. Okay, most countries celebrate Independence Day on the day that they received independence. India on the 15th of August, Singapore on the 9th. So why does America choose July the 4th? It actually gained independence on January the 14th, 1783, through the Treaty of Paris. But Indonesia has chosen to choose when they declared independence. And guess what? Indonesia has done the same. And very unique is Indonesia. So in 1945, Sukarno and students claimed Indonesia as independent. In 1949, the Dutch ratified this through the UN. And then amazingly, on the same date, August the 17th, Indonesia became the Republic of Indonesia, and that is in 1950. So it's almost a double independence celebration for Indonesians on the 17th of August. Finally, I'd like to share something I used to show my students about guns. Now, I'd ask them, are guns dangerous? Oh, yes, sir. What about knives? Yes, sir. Well, what about a spoon? So they giggle. So here is what I would show them. I bring out my gun, my knife, and my spoon. And I tell them, okay, so let's see. Gun dangerous. No, a gun cannot hurt me. What about a knife? Have you seen knives flying? Oh, it's a knife. Of course not. What about a spoon? But of course, in the wrong hands, guns are dangerous. But it needs this. It needs somebody to point and shoot. Same with a knife. Knives aren't dangerous. But of course, if I want to use it as a weapon. What about this spoon? Well, believe it or not, I could probably kill with the spoon. The bottom line is we have to be very careful with the language we choose. Okay, I hope you enjoyed Believe It or Not, and don't forget, bear, bear, don't be a sheep.